Hello, how are you? Good. I'm back again. Today I'm going to talk about the new Spied Hummer, the Ferrari F355, the Volkswagen Golf GTI Club Sport Mark 8, and why Jaguar are a bunch of arseholes, and it's not because they've decided just to make electric vehicles. So let's get started, shall we? Okay. So we'll start with Jaguar. So as I mentioned there just before my beautiful intro, Jaguar have announced that they're going to only make alternatively powered vehicles from 2025 onwards. So that will be electric vehicles to begin with for sure. They already have the F-Pace, I-Pace, F-Pace. Which one's the electric one? I-Pace, right? Oh, it's got to be the I-Pace. I'm sorry, I'm bad enough with names. Don't get me started on letters. So yeah, it's kind of understandable. Their home market has said they're not going to allow the sales of combustion engine cars from 2030, so they're kind of backed into a corner. The I-Pace seems to be, from what I've heard, a pretty good car. So they've got a good starting point when it comes to EV technology. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. They have said as well they are going to also begin looking into hydrogen fuel cells. So there's also that, which is quite interesting. It'll be interesting. Jaguar seems to be a hard sell just generally. I know it's a halo model and it's on its way out, but the XJ in 2020, I think worldwide they sold 1,500 of them, which is really, really low. Their global figures are a tiny fraction of what, say, BMW or Mercedes manage. And we'll see. I don't know. I think people choose Jaguars. Yes, they are a left field choice, but it's generally because of the power plant. The power plant has often been quite an emotive part of a Jaguar, big V8s, straight sixes and such. How the appeal of EV only Jags will be interesting to see. But hey, they have to do something. It's do something or die, I think, with Jaguar. And that's why they continue to make all these continuation models that they sell for ridiculous amounts of money. But more on that later. So some spy shots of the new upcoming, I say spied shots, very good quality spy shots of an undisguised new Hummer. That's on its way. I mean, we know the new Hummer is going to be electric only. The one that was spied, you can tell from it, it's missing a few bits of its body additions. Yeah, it's just it's a giant Hummer looking vehicle. I think they said that the power output from the EV version is going to be, I don't know, something ridiculous like 1,000 horsepower. It'll have ridiculous amounts. I think they claimed it will have like 9,000 pounds-feet of torque. Yeah, no doubt, like EVs work well as off-road vehicles. I think going off-road was probably one of the Hummer's lesser strengths. The old piston-powered V8 Hummer. Yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, it's an interesting addition to the Hummer brand. So all the journalists in the last week or two got their hands on the Mark 8 Golf GTI Club Sport. Shock horror, it's a better variant of the Mark 8 Golf GTI than the standard, lukewarm diet version of the GTI, just the standard GTI. It looks slightly better, which isn't saying much. The conclusion I get from all the journalists is though that it hasn't really moved on, like especially the later Mark 7.5 versions, the TCR, for example, was just such an accomplished car that is the new Golf GTI really worth the money? No doubt we're going to get a Club Sport S and God knows what else, and obviously the OR will probably be pretty. The OR will be, impressive as it always has been. But does anyone really want a Mark 8 Golf? The Mark 7 looks better. I know that's subjective. It has actual buttons on the interior. There's lots of them. Prices are beginning to drop somewhat. I think we might have hit a high point in the world of the golf, not just the GTI, but just the golf in general. There probably will be a Mark 9 Golf, but will there be any more after that? I suppose everything has to come to an end eventually, doesn't it? That's really all the motoring news that's happened over the last week. Hasn't been the most exciting week of new cars or anything like that. So just to stray away from the news, I know a couple of weeks ago I brought you a 12-month update on my E39. So just a small update now from our outside correspondent, me, outside John, about a small little, how should we say, whoopsie that I had in my 5 Series. So take it away, John. It appears spring may have finally arrived. It's positively balmy out. It's plus 10 degrees Celsius outside according to my car. Hence why I'm currently rocking the shorts. I don't know if anyone can identify my socks. Sorry, before I crash. Speaking of crashing, I won't beat around the bush. The other day, I stuck the Beamer in a ditch. I say ditch. If it wasn't for the topography, I'd probably still be tumbling down a mountain in a ball of fire. Yeah. Okay. So the excuses. So this blizzard and crazy snow conditions that the media and Met Éireann promised us and never arrived. But as I mentioned before, a few of the back roads that are not too far from where I live, they're mountainous, and it doesn't take a lot for it to snow up there, and it did a little bit. And then a few days after that had happened, I just happened to be up, pedaling my E39, and I took a less travelled road, and it was fine at first, but then it turned into this kind of super soft, compacted snow. I was going at a gentle pace. I wouldn't have said fast. There's this downhill right-hander. I came to it, turned the steering wheel, nope. So at that point it was like, if I add power, I'm going off. If I brake, I'm going off. And so I just went off, and it made a few bounces that even you'd question going over at speed in a proper off-road Defender. Back to the Defender in a moment. So eventually I went a good 5 to 6 meters off the road. As I said, it was a bumpy ride. There's a few bangs and then a big thud, which brought me to a stop. Thankfully, it didn't pop off any airbags or anything. Now, it's come away pretty unscathed. There's a scratch that runs along the passenger side sill. The dent that was in the rear door, to my eye, might be slightly larger than it was. And also, there's a few pieces of under tray that I had to pick up once I got free. Now, thankfully, I got very, very lucky that, well, one, I passed a man who was walking along the mountain, which is unusual to see, especially on that less trodden path. He was up there trying to find his girlfriend, who had also gone off the road. So I tried valiantly to get the car out myself, which really wasn't actually going to go anywhere, especially with my shitty tyres, which I will add to my excuses of why I crashed. So I was about to give up, grab my shopping bag and walk back down the mountain. It's maybe a 45-hour-minute walk back down a mountain. And as I was walking, about to get out of my car, that same gentleman was coming back up, and he said he'd got a phone call from his girlfriend, and two helpful gentlemen in a 4x4 had come to her rescue. He said he'd ring her and tell her to tell them to come up and get me. I was like, that's very sound of you. We'll see how that goes. About another 20 minutes passed. I hadn't really heard anything. So I got out and I started walking, put my hood up. It was very, very cold. And as I was starting to walk, just in the distance, I could see this wine-coloured Land Rover Defender coming towards me. Praise Jeebus. I couldn't have got more lucky. 2 lads pulled up, absolute gentlemen. They had the tow ropes with them. So firstly, they had to try and pull me backwards. Thankfully I had my towing eye and everything. Pull me back a fair bit. Even the defender was struggling for traction on the part of the road where I went off. Actually, just before I get to the point where they were pulling me backwards, as we were setting up the tow ropes, the same bend where I went off, so I'm going to have to overtake a cyclist here. The same bend that I went off, a young fella came along in a Fiesta, just a regular, 1 litre previous generation Fiesta in that strange kind of pinky colour they have. He came in a little bit hot, nothing crazy, going quicker than I was, to be fair. I admit I was not going quickly. And then he saw us, which first he started to lose traction just because of the bend itself. Then he stood on the brakes, which caused the car to turn sideways. And he was very quickly sliding sideways towards the stationary defender that was coming to my rescue. Thankfully, he missed it by I'd say about 10 inches. Anyway, back to the original. So they pulled me backwards, and we got a good few meters back towards the road, kind of following the paths that I'd gone off. You could see where I'd gone off. But eventually then we hit another one of the mounds that had caused me to have a bit of an uncomfortable ride into the ditch. That's as far as it was going to go that way. So we switched around and we stuck the tow ropes on the front. He pulled me forward. Again, he was losing traction on the sheet, compacted snow and ice. So I felt the car starting to move, and I just put the boot in first, and out we came. So she lives to fight another day, and this is the first day I've driven it since it happened. That was Friday, and today is Monday, and it's tracking as well as it did before. It went off the road, which is pretty good, to be fair, and it's not making any strange noises. And even when I kind of loaded it through some corners there before I started the video, it's fine. Went over speed bump fine. Everything seems to be okay. So as wild a ride as it was, I think I got off pretty lucky. So that's just a quick update about the E39. It seems to be a bit of a warhorse, and it's just another tale to add to the story, and another reason for me probably to keep it and try and make sure that it continues. It's another reason for me to hang on to it, because it seems to be a bit of a survivor. So we're losing light now, so I'll leave you to it as I nearly miss a gear. God bless. Okay, bye. This is actually the scene of the accident. This is the bend I came down, and it just kind of kept going. I went off around here. There's actually another piece of my under tray. And it went down this way, and I ended up about in around here somewhere. It managed to hit something. Kind of like I'm probably around here. Yeah, it's kind of ended here. And yeah, they pulled me back that way, and I hit that mound there, and then they pulled me forward, and I came out up around here somewhere. So there's the scene of the accident. We'll have a look at the car. It didn't really seem to do much when it smacked the mound going backwards. It's not too bad. It's a little bit of mud splatter, but it was mostly snow and ice, so there's not too much drama. I don't think we'll be able to see underneath. It's probably too dark. Too dark. Yeah, it's missing a few bits of under tray underneath, but as I say, she fights to live another day, huh? Yeah, there you have it. It's advised to fight another day. Just remember, if you are going to have an accident like that, make sure you're in the car by yourself and the road is clear. So if you do end up rolling down a mountain in a ball of flames, at least it's just you and no one else gets hurt. I wish I'd taken more photos and videos of the event, but I was a little bit preoccupied with getting the car out. But anyway, it seems to be holding together after its little foray, and long may the story continue. Cool. It's managing to hold temperature still, even though when you stop, there is a kind of a light whiff of melting engine. But we'll gloss over that. So back to Jaguar. And I mentioned that they are arseholes at the beginning of this delightful broadcast. So yeah, they're going electric only, blah blah blah, and that probably is part of the reason why they've been really pumping their continuation models. There's just been continuation E-types, D-types, Mark IIs, and most recently last week, I didn't cover this, there's a continuation C-type they're going to start building. I'm a bit bored of OEMs pumping out old cars and charging millions and millions of pounds for them. I think the C-type they're going to bring out isn't even road legal. Maybe it is, I don't know. Anyway, it's a ridiculously expensive car just to placate people who couldn't or can't find or can't afford, maybe even though they're paying millions for a new C-type of the originals. What did transpire though from that news last week that they are going to make a C-type is that they are taking an elderly couple in Sweden, or is it Switzerland? Sweden, to court over their reimagined replica of a C-type, something they've owned for decades. They've brought it to shows and stuff and worked together with Jaguar Land Rover over the years with the car. But now, coincidentally, that Jaguar are going to start making their own replica C-types. They've decided that these replica ones are no good, and they have brought this couple to court and are claiming that they must dispose and destroy the vehicle because it breaches their design and copyright. Yeah, that's one bullshit arsehole move, Jaguar. The lawyer who went to confront the Swedish couple about their C-type and how it is no good. The irony is that lawyer who works for Jaguar Land Rover has a replica C-type in his garage at home. There you go. So fuck Jaguar Land Rover, and if they don't settle and tell these lovely old Swedish people that they can keep their C-type, until then they can just go and do one. So normally then, with this shitty car news broadcast, I take one of the main stories from earlier in the show and I'll find some classified alternatives, to celebrate the brand of something you might be able to pick up yourself. But because Jaguar Land Rover are a bunch of bastards at the moment, I'm not going to give them the pleasure of going through their archive. If you wish, you can do that yourself. But something else that came over me during the week was how much I absolutely adore the Ferrari F355. The 355 is kind of the first Ferrari that I grew up with. It came out in I think 95 was the first year, 94, 95 was the first year of the 355. So I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I've just been obsessed with it ever since. It's arguably probably the best looking modern Ferrari. It's got pop-up headlights, god damn it. Something we'll never see again because they've been outlawed. Speaking of pop-up headlights, I'll just mention Jaguar again. Do you ever wonder what the XK8 would have looked like if it had pop-up headlights? I like it. Kind of Jaguar XJ220-ish. Anyway, forget about Jaguar. Giving them too much time now. So in a dream world, I will someday own an F355, but there is a bit of a predicament. Because I've loved it for so long, and I'm very particular about the spec of my F355. Anyway, I've had a quick browse to see what's out there. In Ireland, there doesn't appear to be too many. I found 3 adverts, one of which has a big sold banner over it. Then the other 2, one of them is a Targa Top GTS. It is a manual and it's red. And it's got the airbag steering wheel. We'll get into my specs now in a moment. I don't really want a GTS. It's got black leather as well, and it's left-hand drive, so probably not. Then the other one, it's closer. It's manual. It's right-hand drive, but again, it's a GTS. It's got the airbag steering wheel, and it's got a cream leather, which I'm not mad on. And also, I'm not 100% sure if this dealership actually still exists. So don't ask me why I decided to go to the German classifieds to see if I could find anything. I just think Germans they have a very, very, very strict equivalent to their NCT. I think it's called the TUV test. So used cars in Germany tend to be quite good quality, and they just generally take care of their cars quite well anyway. So it's a good place to look for used cars. And one of the criteria of an S355 that I've kind of given up on is that I wouldn't allow left or right hand drive to be make or break. Obviously I'd like a right hand drive one, but beggars can't be choosers. So I found a couple of nice ones for sale. The first one, I think this is Grigio Titanium. Anyway, it's silver, and it's silver. I think really works well on the F355. It's got red leather interior, which is it's different. So I'll give it that. But it's got the airbag steering wheel, which again I'll get into in a moment, and obviously it's left-hand drive. But yeah, maybe. Then I found this one. It's black. Now, black wouldn't be top of my list of colours, but at least it's not red or yellow. And the good thing about this one is now it's got two-tone leather on the inside, cream and black, which I'm not crazy about either. But it's got the non-airbag steering wheel. And it's also got the rare carbon fibre bucket seats. So yeah, that would be a severe. Oh, it's also got a 2B exhaust. And if you don't know what a 2B exhaust is, they're obviously an aftermarket exhaust company. And this is what a 2B exhaust sounds like on an F355. So you can see how that, would be nice. Might get a bit tiring and your neighbours would hate you, but hey, the combustion engine is on its last legs, so let's enjoy it. Then I thought I found maybe possibly the one that I would go for if I was getting one from Germany. It's Tour de France Blue, which might be my favourite colour. Maybe silver, I'm not 100% sure. I think silver might be the best colour for the 355, but I have an affiliation for Tour de France Blue. I don't know, it's beautiful. It's a manual, it's got cream leather, and it's got the airbag steering wheel, but it's been fully restored recently, and it's very, very nice. It's very nice. Anyway, they're obviously all going to be left-hand drive, so I said, look, I may as well have a look and see if there's anything in the right-hand drive market. Auto Trader really threw up none that I would actually spend my own money if I had it. So I went to, the holy grail, really, where I should have started. I went to Car and Classic. If you're not familiar with Car and Classic, go to it and watch yourself lose the rest of your week scrolling through there. So the first thing that caught my eye was a 1995 Ferrari 355 right-hand drive manual. It's one of 11 because it's a right-hand drive manual 355 challenge. And not only is it a 355 challenge, it's a road legal right-hand drive 355 challenge. Which isn't too bad because the 355 challenge cars are actually quite closely related to the road car, just tweak suspension, brakes, and a bit of light weighting and stuff. That would be amazing, but I don't know how often I would actually use a race car. Excuse me. I don't know how often I would use a race car for the road, on the road. So then I really thought I'd cracked it. Tour de France Blue, tan leather, right-hand drive, 1999. So it has the airbag steering wheel, but that could be easily replicated. And if I really wanted the buckets, I'm sure I could find them somewhere as well. I was like, wow, this really is nice though. It's nice. And then it's not a manual. It's got the early style F1 paddle shift. Now, which admit was revolutionary, and I believe Ferrari were the first people to do it in a road car with the F355. But this is an F1 paddle shift gearbox from 1995. It's obviously going to be terrible, and plus manual. The open gate manual of Ferrari, it has to be manual. So I've come to the conclusion, maybe it's out there, but it's not for sale. But my perfect F355 it's going to be hard to find. So colour, I don't want a red one, I don't want a yellow one. They're just too obvious, and I don't think Ferraris look at their best in red or yellow. So I either want a silver Titanium Grigio or a Tour de France Blue, preferably. Depends. Again, either the rest of the spec would push either way on what colour I went for. Right-hand drive would be preferable, but not a deal breaker. And I want the pre-airbag steering wheel. So obviously legislation came in where in the US first, where you had to have an airbag to meet road going homologation in America. And the airbag steering wheel on the F355 is this big, ugly piece of crap. The pre-airbag steering wheel is this nice 3-spoke. It's lovely. But again, look, you can buy an airbag car and see if you can source one of the older steering wheels. That's again not a deal breaker. So yes, so my spec is either grey, Tour de France Blue, manual, right-hand drive, no airbag steering wheel, carbon buckets for the seats, and preferably a tan leather. Whether that car actually exists, I don't know. I'm sure it does. If anyone sees it coming for sale, let me know. I won't be able to buy it, but I will look at it and drool. You know, because that's someday. You got to dream, right? You got to dream. The 355 is kind of the last of the old guard Ferraris, where maintenance took a lot of like dropping engines, etc. And they were prone to spontaneously combusting, etc. They're delicate. And obviously it is an evolution of what was the previous Berlinetta Ferrari, the 348, which, from what I'm again told, wasn't a great car. And they tweaked what was wrong with it and adjusted the styling a little bit, and we got the 355. Now, I think the 348 is about to have its day in the sun. It is starting to kind of creep up now, and I think the next few years will be interesting for the 348 because it's got that late 80s, early 90s style, which is a thing now. It's got the strakes along the side. It's a good looking car. It's very like the 355, just a little bit more retro. They're a lot cheaper. You can get, there's one in Ireland, a right-hand drive one, or is it left-hand drive? It's left-hand drive, but it's got this lovely Alcantara racing wheel. It's manual, black leather. The simplicity of it is beautiful. It's 65 grand, which admittedly obviously is a lot of money, but that's far cheaper than you'll get a 355 for. A 355 over here, you're looking at a minimum of 150. And plus, there's enough people out there who will tweak your 348 that will make it a much better car than it was in period. So maybe the perfect spec 348 is out there. Would I, if I had the money, this imaginary money? No, I'd still have to get the 355. But the 348, you've heard it now. The next few years of the 348, buy them now and flip them for probably double the money. And so before I bow out on this episode, I will go into the classifieds of, you know, what could you get instead of something new that happened. So fuck Jaguar. But that other story I talked about at the beginning, the new EV Hummer that's on the way, I was like, what could you buy instead of that? Because it's still a couple of years away and it's going to be ridiculously expensive when it goes on sale. So in Ireland, I have a couple to choose from. So we firstly have this this H2, 7-seat H2, black on black, completely standard, which is good to see, the standard wheels and such. 33,950. It's got 93,000 miles in it, but lazy V8, it should be fine. NCT is just up February 2021, it says, but you know, 34 grand to look like, you know, an aging early millennium rapper. Why not? For 4,000 more of your euros though, there is an alternative. It says this one now is a 6.2. I'm not completely up to date with the Hummer timeline. Maybe they increased the capacity of the engine, maybe a little bit more horsepower, maybe 190 or 180 or something, maybe. So it's 4 grand more, 37,950. It's only got 67,000 miles in it in this one. Its NCT expired in April 2018, it says in the ad. But it is a stretched H2 Hummer. So you and 2 or 3 of your friends could socially distance while you drive around the city taking recreational drugs at a social distance. You know, maybe it's the car for now. A stretched H2 Hummer. Consumer advice. That's what I'm here for. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this this another rambling episode of nonsense that I've put together for you. Do have a safe week. I might be back in a couple of days. I don't know. Whenever I have some free time to do another one, I'll do another one. But until then, God bless. Stay safe. Stay well.